Welcome to KodaCast, the premier podcast on all things Web3 and NFTs. I'm Damsky, your host, and today we have an exciting guest joining us. Tommi is the growth lead at Mangata, the founder of ChaosDAO, and is currently bootstrapping Polkalytics, an analytics boutique for Polkadot. Hey Tommi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Thanks for the invitation. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to have you here. So for starters, can you tell us about your journey into Web3 and the Web3 space and what led you afterwards to take on the role of growth lead and at Mangata Finance?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I got invested into Bitcoin and Ethereum in 2017. I was following the market, did try to trade, of course, obviously, and that didn't work out so well, so day trade. And then I just kept hodling during the following bear market. And then in the next bull market, I came a little bit late to the next bull market. And I realized, oh no, I've been sleeping during the bear market. It's actually the best time to invest. And I was getting a little bit of FOMO. And so I started looking around all the different top 20, top 30 projects on CoinGecko. And I was cycling through the major ecosystems that have come up in the last 4 years. And so I was also, of course, reading about Polkadot. And the first time I didn't get it. It was like, there are many projects that claim to revolutionize everything, and it's usually just a nice website. So I didn't get it the first time. I was cycling back and forth 1 week later or a few weeks later. I didn't get it the second time. And when I was reading through it the third time, it suddenly clicked for me. So the thing that clicked for me was the mechanism of the relay chain, actually. And I realized that, okay, so in Polkadot, the chain doesn't do everything. It tries to do as little as possible and tries to outsource all of the other activities to the parachains, which would then have to compete against each other to provide the best possible experience for users. And so this was the point for me when I realized, okay, so you have all of those systems and there is a real drive for innovation, and Polkadot doesn't even execute smart contracts. So I don't know, this is after this clicked for me, I couldn't really sleep for 2 nights because I was thinking about all the possibilities that were suddenly becoming possible. Usually how I compare it is that, so Bitcoin is like a calculator. You put in some numbers and you shift numbers around and so on. And then suddenly you had Ethereum, and it was actually a computer. It was a virtual machine that could execute programs. And if you use the same metaphor now, Polkadot is actually like a multi-threaded computer. It can do multiple things at the same time, and at the threads, the processes, the chains can communicate with each other. So this was really groundbreaking for me. And so then I was hooked on Polkadot and was just immersing myself with the community. And that was almost 2 years ago.
I see. So how did you land at Mangata Finance?
Yeah. So when I landed at Polkadot, I was running the numbers and I was seeing, okay, I could actually become a validator. I could run a validator and earn a little bit of money extra. And I was running the numbers and I was saying, okay, the worst thing that happens is that everything stays the same and I just have an additional year maybe of node operation experience, which isn't too bad running a server. And in a good case, I would be earning a little bit extra. So I was setting up my node, and this took me, 1, 2, 3 weeks. And then I realized, okay, now I would be ready to receive some stake, but I need to advertise my node, and there are a lot of other nodes actually running. So I was thinking, okay, the thing that I really do know is technology and marketing. So how about I build a YouTube channel and start sharing knowledge with people, and in this way I would get nominations, and I would also like get to know some people in the ecosystem because they watch the videos. And around this time, very early, Peter, the founder of Mangata, the co-founder of Mangata and CEO of Mangata Finance, became aware of me, and he was looking for a communications marketing person. And so he was seeing that I'm doing content that was really marketable. And so he approached me. And then we met 2 times, one time in Bratislava, one time in Vienna, had lunch, discussed it, and then we came to an agreement. And so I joined Mangata 1.5 years ago, as marketing lead and basically start to explain Mangata to the world. That was the beginning.
Wow, nice. But you were saying that like your background is marketing and you had like your YouTube channel. So like, what's your what were you doing before Web3?
Yeah. So my core background is actually technology and IT. So I did study a master's in information management and computer security, and then for most of my work years I was doing something in IT. First being a software developer, but then I changed jobs and did something in political communication, which sort of was very close to marketing. And then over time, working for a political party, I came back into this role of setting up technological infrastructure that helps communication marketing. So I was always at the crossroads of technology and communication and marketing. And so I think this is also the right mix right now if you're looking for a role in marketing or growth in Web3. It's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, I see. So when we would look at basically the current state of Polkadot right now, how do you see basically projects like Mangata or, for example, ChaosDAO or Polkalytics even to basically help it grow?
Yeah. It's an ecosystem. It's every major ecosystem is like a nation state. You have different branches of the economy, each providing a service and working together. And you can see this in many ecosystems that are booting up, that are starting. There are a few established products that every ecosystem needs. It needs a swap. Usually it has a lending protocol, a stable coin, NFTs, and then auxiliary services like identity, proxies, and all kinds of products on top that make it usable, block explorers, wallets, and so on, data products. So I think right now you see that the major ecosystems, so you have Ethereum, which is fairly developed. It has a lot of years on its, and the products are becoming very sophisticated and very advanced. And then the more modern ecosystems are basically trying to innovate on top of this, but improving the base layer functionality. This is true for all ecosystems, no matter if you like them or not. So it's true for Cardano and Solana, but it's true for Polkadot, Cosmos, Avalanche. So they're trying to improve base layer elements. And at the same time, they need to have all the established products where you say you need them. So all of this is coming on top also. So it's basically everything being built at the same time. And so when you look at it, you basically have to understand, is the base layer making sense? Because all the products on top will only be successful if the base layer is successful. The foundation needs to work out. So I think that's why it's very crucial to make decisions based on like values or core assumptions of what you believe will be successful technology in the future.
I see. So after I was talking to some people, for example, in conferences and so on, they were asking me like a question, why Polkadot? So if you would were to sell it in 3 sentences.
3 sentences. Okay. I think Polkadot achieves so I think one of the core strengths of Polkadot is that it allows anyone to innovate on top of it, create a new chain or any new technology. It's really strong on decentralization. So this is the core focus and differentiates it from a few other ecosystems even though we are actually in crypto where decentralization should be core tenet. So innovation, decentralization, and I think there is some form of spirit of going into Web3, right? It's not just about building technology or having money float around, but also the whole idea of Web3 is that it feeds back into the real world and feeds back into the actual economy and the real life of people. And so it's not just about financial products, but it's about any kind of product. So for example, you can take Kilt, which provides identity, which I think is going to be crucial. And it has very interesting technology-based solutions also, like Crust and Fala, which provide decentralized storage and decentralized compute. And then innovative things that feed into the blockchain economy itself, like Oak Network, which is basically automation, fully trustless automation on-chain. So I think it just carries the spirit of Web3, really. That was about 3 sentences now.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what inspired you to found ChaosDAO, and how does it die like with your Web3 vision?
Yeah. ChaosDAO wasn't really planned. I had this idea I was connected with a few people from the Polkadot ecosystem on Twitter. And so Twitter is a very short-lived thing. You write a tweet, it goes away. You write a tweet, it goes away. It's sort of, it's like this organism that keeps on evolving the whole time. But it's just a current discussion, and so I was basically longing for community in a way that is a little bit more stable or subtle or calm. And I was thinking that having a Discord community would be great. And it was just an idea. I tried to create communities, I think 12 times in my life, and it never really worked out. But you just create a server on Discord and you try it out. I just invited the right people. Maybe it was all the extrovert people that are active on Twitter, and so sort of they meshed together and they had fun and we shared knowledge, and we didn't set up any real structure in the beginning. We basically evolved the structure as we went on, made a lot of group decisions, consensus-based decisions, didn't have any voting or so initially. So it was all very consensus-based and just developing it as we go. How does it tie into Web3? It's a great community, and it's a community of engaged people that are active in the same ecosystem, that want to be successful for themselves, but that also care a lot about the ecosystem. And interestingly, quite a few people then also got hired or hired themselves into Polkadot projects. So right now, quite a few of us are also active in different products, and so this was never planned, but it evolved into this network of people that are active in the ecosystem, working in the ecosystem, and that also know each other in a sense. Yeah, Web3 is very decentralized. You always, when you try to find a concept where you can say, okay, now I have a concept that puts it into a hierarchy, it usually transcends that concept. You cannot really apply only a single concept on top of it. I think community discords are essential to the internet itself and are going to be essential to Web3 in the future also.
Surely, I mean, like the art of building communities is, a thing that every project needs to tackle, right? To have a good and engaged community. And ChaosDAO was like one of the first, basically like bigger communities, right, in Polkadot.
Yeah, it's also a bottom-up thing. Usually, when you are working with a company and you try to build a community, you have always this conflict of, it's to a certain degree it's a top-down thing, because like company wants community, but like real communities emerge just of people building something from the bottom up. And so this is why it's usually a community works much more organic initially. It doesn't mean that you can't build a community from when you're initiating a project, but it's sort of different constraints or assumptions that you have to make.
Yeah. So how, like with the recent hype and, DeFi summer previous years, how do you view like DeFi in Polkadot in general, and how do you see Mangata like contributing to the DeFi space?
Yes. I would say DeFi is starting to grow up a little bit. I mean, DeFi summer there was the catalyst, and the catalyst was basically that liquidity mining was discovered as a silver bullet to rent liquidity and project interest into the future. So if someone was thinking that a project would be successful, it would also be okay for them to provide liquidity and gain a lot of the tokens that would be governing the project in the future. So it was sort of bringing time in as a factor, factoring in time and future interest into the project, into DeFi. And before that, there were exchanges, but because there was no additional incentive to that degree, it was very limited. So it's sort of you're buying time, but you will have to pay back that thing in the future because the token has an assumed price that has to be realized in the future. And so, but it was a great catalyst for DeFi, and so many projects sprung up that basically replicated that formula. But with every additional project that springs up and just tries to replicate it, not every project will be successful in the future. So that's number one. So DeFi has to grow up in the sense that projects have to actually deliver on the value for all the stakeholders and make good on the promises of all stakeholders. And so they have to find holistic concepts that work in every direction, which is really, really, really hard. And number two is a lot of problems were discovered. For example, so Ethereum is actually a proof of concept. It's a proof of concept that a virtual machine, a computer on a blockchain can work. And it works. But because it is a proof of concept, it has a hard time. It was never, for example, it was never be constructed to work for DeFi specifically. It works for DeFi, but there are certain inefficiencies that it has. For example, you usually pay, when you use a DeFi product, you pay an exchange commission. But now you're also paying the fee for the network. But if you go to the bank, you don't pay the bank the fee that you pay to the bank and an additional fee because the bank is renting that building. Yeah, that the bank is just including that in the fee. But on Ethereum, you pay at least two different types of fees. So this is just one example. And there are many more examples how bots are manipulating Ethereum network right now. So the whole MEV topic. And so DeFi also has to grow up in the sense that it looks at the problem that currently exists in DeFi, in the first generation of DeFi, and looks at ways of solving this. And so this is, I think, especially the contribution of Mangata is, and I guess any app chain that works in DeFi, an app chain can change the rules on how it operates. It can change the rules of the game. So it can dictate new rules that work better in alignment with the goals of the DeFi product. So for example, on Mangata, one of the most prominent things is it has gasless swaps. So this works because it can make some assumptions that if an exchange is over a certain volume, there is a little bit of an exchange commission that the exchange makes. And so it can basically discount the transaction and say you don't need to pay gas because you already gave us a little bit of business. That's what the chain says. And so you can model very specific cases. You can look at existing problems and change the rules of how the chain operates so that it fixes those problems. And I think this is the contribution of Mangata, and every DeFi app chain is working in the space has this opportunity to change the rules.
I mean, we have touched a little bit on, like, let's say, the liquidity mining, and it goes hand in hand with tokenomics, which I believe every project has to tackle. So, like, we have seen tokenomics of projects which were obviously, not beneficial for the users. So how do you, like, set up proper tokenomics so it can benefit both the app chain and both of the user?
Yep. That's a very deep topic. I once even prepared like an outline for a slide deck to give a presentation on this, because I was thinking about presenting it at a conference and applying. I didn't do it yet, but I might do it in the future. How do you set up tokenomics? So many things to consider. So tokenomics, if you say that holding the token gives you an ownership of the network, you have to think about who do you want to give ownership and when. So these are two very important questions. So often you see a pie chart of the tokenomics, and it basically says this group gets this amount of tokens, this group gets this amount of tokens. And what this basically implies is that you have certain stakeholder groups, and you're planning to basically giving weight to each stakeholder group and saying how much weight should each stakeholder group have in the growth of the network. So if you're, for example, a DEX chain, you want to give weight to liquidity providers because they're very essential for the network. Every chain needs to give weight to node operators because they're very essential. But so every project has to model which are the important stakeholder groups that are going to be there. And sometimes this is divided into functions. So sometimes there is a marketing allocation or airdrop allocation. But airdrop, for example, means I want to advertise to users of similar products. This is an airdrop because you don't want to randomly airdrop. You want to, if you have an exchange, you want to target other exchanges and airdrop tokens to those users because say, okay, they are trading on another exchange, so they might be trading here. So basically also an airdrop is the allocation for a user group that you cannot reach directly. So you think about all those stakeholder groups, and then the second question is when. So some of the allocation happens immediately, but there is a strong argument for allocating tokens at a later point in time. So you want the network to be able to distribute tokens to people that inject value at a later point in time. Because not everyone is able to see the project initially, because initially you have very little exposure to the market. And over time, if you constantly provide value, you will get more exposure, more people will hear of the project, and they will consider to participate. And so there needs to be an incentive for them to participate and inject value into the product. I would say these are the two biggest questions, and we could talk a full hour about this, but yeah, I think this is a good primer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can do a deep dive on it maybe a couple of weeks later on or sometimes else. It's a really interesting topic, you know.
Yeah, maybe, sorry for interrupting. Maybe a roundtable with like other people that are also interested in the topic. I know that Crane from the ecosystem is very interested in the topic. Also, Don Diego Sanchez. They are thinking about this a lot recently.
And we could also invite, like, for example, Alexei or Jakub from Hydra and Interlake, you know, to chat all things tokenomics. Because honestly, like when a normal person, not normal person, but when you look at tokenomics, either people don't understand it or they just like, you know, it's hard to really find out whether it is valuable for you or not. Like when you see that 60% of the tokens go to VCs, I mean, that's really bad, you know, and you really don't want to be there, right, for the inception, even though you get an airdrop. The interesting thing with airdrops, one I wanted to mention is like what we see right now with, for example, Arbitrum. I mean, let's say I would be an honest user and I would be working on Arbitrum daily and just, you know, try all the things. But they are like, I get my airdrop, but there is people who have 100 wallets and they basically totally Sybil attack the chain and receive like most of the tokens, right? So what would you say is how can we solve this?
So I think one important leading principle is that initially the market will be heavily skewed and the price will not be right initially for any project, I guess. Just because out of pure speculation. People are speculating in any direction, and it's I think the worst thing is short-term grifters that then sort of destroy their reputation. And it's natural for them to appear. If there's something for free, why shouldn't they take it? So I think actually a project should be conservative about giving stuff away for free, because it makes sense to a certain degree, but if you think your product is valuable, why should you give away the value for free? You should rather convince others of the value of the product, and then if they're interested in the product, they buy it. So I think this is the general approach. But initially, the price will always be skewed, and it takes time for a price to find its true or fair price or fair value, especially in a market that is so heavily prone to speculation like crypto. So the price will take time to find its true value or fair value, and you have to manage the time in between and just try to make smart decisions that lead the market into a better direction. So I think big airdrops is maybe a big marketing thing because, for example, I was too hearing of Arbitrum. That was just because of the airdrop, basically, because everyone talked about it. So it has a certain value, but you have to take time into perspective and also make maybe an educated guess about at which point in time will the market likely find the fair price of the token.
Yeah. So when we look at Polkadot in general and also Web3 in a way, there are challenges that we need to overcome, obviously, both in Web3 and Polkadot. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that we need to overcome in Polkadot and Web3?
Yep. I think first of all, people are often scared that, I don't know, crypto won't work out or Web3 or whatever, or this project beats the other project or whatever. So long-term, Web3 is inevitable because it's just, it provides great value for people, technology, the industry. So it's much more that people care about their bags and if they made the right investment decisions or so. So I would rather think about, again, how can we best inject value, because this is the best way to grow our ecosystem. I think decentralization is important. So parachains, for example, usually when they start out, there's a restricted number of people that really believe in the project. And these are usually the people closest to the project, right? And then a few fans. So they are the initial owners of a chain, of course, because that's the case for any DAO. And then that makes it sort of centralized. So any product that wants to become leading needs to convince more and more people that they are a good product. And so hand in hand with that has to go the gradual decentralization of the product into the hands of many more people. So decentralization is still an issue. You still see basically, even in Polkadot, that many chains are multi-sigs essentially, which I think is okay for the beginning. So I'm not like a hardcore decentralist that says everything must always initially be decentralized, because you see many projects fail that way. And there are also attack vectors that can be exploited against that mindset or this way of operating. But there needs to be a decentralization in the same sense as the product gains more fans, users, customers. In the same way, it must decentralize. So decentralization is always a priority. I think the whole bridging and cross-chain communication topic is essential. And I said this at the beginning of last year, and I'm still saying this: if you want to have a good job in Web3 and in Polkadot at the moment, you just need to learn XCM. You could focus just on learning XCM, and it would land your job somewhere in the ecosystem. Just because it's so new, not so many people know it very deeply, and it's going to be a crucial technology or format, exchange format in the future of Polkadot. So communication, decentralization, and the biggest of all might be user experience. I'm still convinced that all of the Web3 products you see don't have a good user experience. I think it's because we come from the technology and we look at a feature and then we try to build a user interface on top of it. And it basically is just a user interface for that feature. While you're actually, if I would be coming, I would say, okay, I want to manage my money, so I need an app on my phone, and then I can manage can I manage my money on my phone? And okay, if I would like to stake it, I would also do that, right? So user experience starts with coming from the experience of the user and not like feature experience in a way. I think, but this is a natural progression. We're starting to build features, and it's sort of is approaching the needs of the users on the other side. I think wallet creators have the biggest lever to make this happen. And I'm actually seeing a future, and I'm waiting for this future, where a wallet is not just a wallet, but it's basically its own screen where you have all your favorite chains and all your favorite features on a single screen. and it just adapts to you. And I think we will need some kind of middleware logic, schema, data abstraction for that. So this is still not emerging. I'm trying to participate a little bit in the creation of that in Polkadot. And I think this is going to be the big breakthrough when you have a wallet where you can actually do all the stuff and you don't have to have, 30 different bookmarks for all the websites that you need to visit to get your stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. And also basically focusing on, the mobile experience, because at the end, when you want to reach the masses, we need to address the people who are using just their phone. Not everybody has a desktop, or when you are going somewhere abroad, you, for example, don't want to bring a desktop, but you want to do everything from your phone. So I think this is pretty important as well.
Yeah. A few years ago, you had this crossing point where 50% of the web traffic was coming from the phone. Many people are paying with their phone. I'm not there yet, but it's basically you have an assistant or a smart device and this can just be a hot wallet, but it should at least be able to work as a hot wallet. And then the cold wallet can be anywhere else. It can be on a ledger, or it can be paper wallet, or whatever people use. And even the infrastructure around that is sort of very hard to tackle, because sort of paper wallet, I think, is essential. But making everyone who engages in DeFi use a paper wallet might be a hard approach, right? Maybe two-factor authentication. So right now, if you interact with a bank, you're actually using two-factor authentication. It's sort of sufficient for many use cases. So even on that front, user experience.
Yeah, I agree. As someone with expertise in growth, can you share your top strategies or tips for projects looking to grow their user base and expand their reach?
Yeah. I guess there are much better experts in the field out there. I'm sort of exploring this also as I go. I started out in marketing with Mangata, and marketing is a different field. Marketing is basically you understand the product and then you explain the product in an engaging way. But growth is different. Growth is about thinking about who are all the possible users that are going to use the product and how will it integrate. So how I approach growth is so we have one internal key metric that is important to us, and that is the active users. It's not TVL and it's not volume and so on, because this will play a role eventually. Eventually, for a DeFi product, the most important role is volume, or whatever drives the revenue. But the adoption comes from actually people and users using the product. So we're looking at users. And so then you can segment those users into what are the possible user groups. For an exchange, it's liquidity providers, traders, arbitrageurs, and then you have node operators, you have all kinds of other integrators, basically, other kinds of integrators other than arbitrage bots. And so then you're thinking about which of those groups, and sort of they have all come and work together. So this is the tricky thing, is you can't only focus on traders or liquidity providers, because they're always matching each other. A blockchain is sort of a marketplace that allows those actors to come together and exchange what they're interested in. So you have to grow all of them at the same time, and they all have to come over a certain critical mass. And so you have to think through all of the user groups and how can you bring them above the critical mass where the system would become self-sufficient and running. So that means you think through the user groups, and then you think about what offers can you make them, how can you reach them. This is one part. And this is sort of a little bit of a business to customer perspective. And then there is a business to business perspective where what other products do you want to integrate against? And this is actually a lot of relationship building. So this is getting to know people, calling with other projects, learning what they are doing, staying on top of what is happening, and not forcing everyone initially. So maybe one interesting side story that I was learning. The interesting thing about Web3 is you're engaging with people from all over the planet, right? And I come from Europe, so previously in my life, I engaged with people from Austria and maybe a little bit from Europe. But so now I'm engaging with people from the Americas, I'm engaging with people from Asia and Africa and so on. And so one belief that I held for a long time is that how people do business in Asia, East Asia, is sort of different because there is a cultural difference and there is different expectations and how you interact and engage. And so I was consulting my cousin who has been working in Korea for 3 years, and I told him, okay, so how do I talk with people from Korea? So how do you properly behave and so on? And so what I realize is that the mindset is often that relationship building is very important and it can take a long time. So you don't need to solve everything in a single call or in a single week or month. Yeah. Sometimes it's just you get to know each other and you see if there's something can be made, and if not, then maybe in a few months, right? And so I'm trying to adopt this mindset of you build relationships, and you build long-lasting relationships by just being in each other's periphery and seeing what is there. And then if there's a good opportunity, you have built a relationship and it's much easier to take the opportunity.
Wow, that's really some nice alpha. Which reminds me of a question. Like we were talking about growth, we were talking about marketing, we were talking about community. So you are bootstrapping a project. It's called Polkalytics. Like I know it's a little bit different sphere, but it's still in Web3. But like if you would think about it like from these terms, marketing, growth, and community, where is the starting point? Like where do you start first? Because like how do you want to grow when you are not doing marketing, right? And how do you want to do marketing when you have no users, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, where did I start? I started with the product. So, and this was actually a product for myself initially. I just needed to get my taxes done. And so I was starting to write a little bit of code to help me get my taxes done. And then I realized that I was talking with other people in conferences about this, and they said, oh yeah, I need this. And so after having a few conversations where people said, oh yeah, I need this, I realized, okay, people actually need this, so maybe I could build a product out of this. So I started with the product. And then at some point you need to stop building and start marketing. So this is essential. And marketing is basically, the way you should approach it if you know nothing about marketing is you think about who would be the person that benefits the most from the product and what is the problem. And that's why it's helpful if you have the problem yourself. But who is the person who is suffering the problem? And then you try to get in contact with those people to actually validate, is it true? And then you want to speak the language and basically describe the problems and then say, you're having this problem, so this is the product, right? And then you create a little bit of material. And the thing with marketing is it's more of an ongoing effort. You don't solve it in a single take. You basically have to reserve a little bit of time regularly and say, okay, now I'm doing 2 hours of marketing. And however good or bad you are, you just like keep working on this and grinding on this, even if it's not fun. And keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And that means preparing materials internally or publishing something. Eventually you have to publish something. Blog posts are good. Videos or documents are good, and then like Twitter around it. And then comes sales. Sales is the thing that I know the least about. I'm currently learning sales. But sales basically means building lists of interested customers that you might got from marketing, getting in contact with them, talking about the product, and then see if they're interested. So yeah, but it comes like from the inside out. Product, marketing, sales, I would say.
All right.
And growth is sort of the thing that you're doing the whole time, because everything you do in this regard, if you're a single person.
Yeah, essentially. All right. So, like for a rapper question, like what advice would you give for somebody, you know, who would want to start with Polkadot?
Yeah.
Like, let's say maybe even finding a job or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So my general approach is Web3 is pretty new and it's going to be there forever, at least of our full lifetime. So if you're interested in Web3, you should consider that as the time horizon in which you can get started. So, and that means whatever you're interested in Web3 is something that is worth, like if you invest time in learning about this or engaging with it, it's knowledge that you gained and it will compound in the future, because the more you know, the easier it is to get access to more knowledge or to understand how stuff is working. So learning is number one priority, just engaging with stuff and looking at it and reading documentation and blogs and asking questions and trying to destroy it or see how it could actually not work. And then maybe get convinced that it works or that it doesn't work. And then if you want to actually land a job, maybe start by injecting value somewhere. So if you see there's something needs to be done and you can easily do it and it's something that's enjoyable for you, you do it. And that could be educating other people on Twitter. It could be participating in a community and sort of answering questions for other people. If you can code, there are a lot of projects to contribute. And then if you're doing something that is actually valuable to a lot of people, it's worth asking for a tip from the treasury. So Polkadot and Kusama treasuries can tip if you did something that was valuable. For example, create a video that was educating a few people on a certain topic and it's sort of new, has a fresh take, or it adds something. The same thing is possible with grants, and if you and it's also irrespective of which type of business you're coming. If you're legal, if you're HR or marketing or whatever, there is I think Web3 is growing so much right now that there is a job for everyone. And if you're engaged in this way, you will meet more people and you will come across more opportunities. And if you maximize your learning and maximize your networking, you will come across more opportunities and there will be something there for you.
All right. Very nice, Alpha. All right, guys. So thank you, everybody, for listening to our session with Tommi, the growth lead at Mangata. I'm happy for everybody to hear this conversation because I think there is a lot to be taken from Tommi and his approach. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, like us, and share the episode. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tommi. Bye.